Welcome and good evening, everybody. Thank you for those who have jumped in so far. My name's Amanda. Yes, it says Christina. I am signed in under her account. Yes, this is going to be the kickoff for our Blue Zones Challenge. So I'm just letting everybody know that this is being recorded and it will be distributed within about 24 hours. My goal is tonight. So if anybody has to hop on or hop off, tonight might be a little lengthier. However, next week's going to be a little shorter. So just to recoup that time, we're estimating about 45 minutes is the goal. So I'm just going to share my screen, let everyone trickle in, give it a minute, maybe two, and then take it from there. And feel free to stop me along the way if you have questions. I am going to have a Q&A at the end, of course. Uh, but yeah, if something comes up, please let me know. Can everyone see my screen? Test, test. Can everybody see my screen? Oh, thank you. Sorry, I saw the chat. Excellent. I'm just going to go back. Okay. So welcome to tonight's kickoff to the Blue Zones Challenge. This is going to be a 30-day challenge. So we've incorporated a few presentations, or we call coaching calls, because we want to make this an open space for conversation, of course. Today's theme is going to be, of course, going into the logistics of the challenge, the housekeeping, of course, touching base on all of those, and really setting the tone for what is a Blue Zones diet. So although we're using the term Blue Zones, I'll go into more what this means. We're not using the National Geographic Blue Zones diet exactly as their brand implies. We want to, of course, hold to a higher protein focus that's still also emphasizing plants, but you'll see I'll note a little discrepancies. So this is going to be our functional nutrition RX twist on Blue Zones. So what does Blue Zones mean? What does that even incorporate, right? So Blue Zones are characterized as regions around the world where cultures and traditions that take place that help to enhance the likelihood that someone may live to become a centenarian. So it's essentially pockets of the world that have a higher population of centenarians. So you could see on the top right hand corner, you have, even in the United States, we've got California with Loma Linda in the south. But of course, you shoot overseas, you've got Okinawa, Japan. That tends to be the first one that people tend to notice and can recall when they, think about blue zones. Of course, Italy with Sardinia. I'm a little jealous there. I have ancestors from Sicily, and part of what inspires me to do this is I see a lot of common traditions that many of us here on Long Island have that can really be enhanced to help us in our favor and take knowledge from these little pockets of the world and see how we can just incorporate it into our day-to-day lives, just to live a little bit healthier, hopefully a little bit longer, just to be our best selves and to be around for our loved ones. So the concept that it's deemed with these blue zones regions is it's thought to be their daily habits, the environment. It's not, some are more urban, believe it or not. I think Nicoya has a little bit more of a urban landscape versus Sardinia or Ikaria in Greece, for example. But they're typically geographically isolated areas that maintain very strong community ties. We did learn the power of community, I feel, during the pandemic. And I think many of us are still really trying to get back to, building relationships in the gym, or whether that's getting involved in our community, volunteering, etc. We'll learn more about aspects of these cultures as we go along. And it is rooted in peer-reviewed research. However, it's also worth noting that a lot of this is coming from a gentleman by the name of Dan Bettner. So he was a world-class cyclist who traveled the world and noticed, why are some of these individuals living longer, and then eventually started working for National Geographic and was able to go into these areas more to explore them. But what I like is this plan kind of it ties perfectly into what you do see in the literature. So for example, Ikaria, Greece, there's all, steps for those who have been to Greece or Italy. It tends to be more hill-esque villages in these remote areas. And that highlights that these individuals tend to have higher amounts of lower body muscle mass. It does help us to keep active lifelong. However, with blue zones, they want to tie in that it's more natural to the land. And it's less on this concept of willpower and having to be shaped by this concept of willpower. And it's more about shaping the places and routines and the people that surround us and shape our habits. So it is acknowledging that with like nutrition and cravings, we can be persuaded by our physiology, our physical needs, our psychological needs, and of course, our environment does shape us greatly. So like I said, I went into many of the areas and blue zones, the essence for us today, uh, as we're diving into this challenge, it's about lifespan versus health span. So it's the concept that here in the United States, before we dive into the challenge, I think it's important to ground us in what matters at the end of the day, right? Every year, there's about 1.7 million Americans who pass away from chronic diseases or conditions that can be helped potentially with lifestyle, exercise, changing our environment and our chemicals that we take into our body, how we treat our mind, body, soul. And it's looking at incidences of heart disease, cancer, stroke, diabetes, and saying like, what can we try to control? Because yes, there is a genetic component to this. Of course, we would be silly to not say that. However, it's about shaping what we can, controlling what we can, and the environment that we live in can actually imprint and impact the epigenetics or the expression of our genes, or turning on, turning off the expression of different genes. And you see that a lot with fertility research now, but also it's thought that even in changing your psychological outlook too, many of you may have seen on different news reports or articles that have come out that loneliness is becoming a greater epidemic. And it's been estimated that if someone is lonely, it can impact up to 15 years of their life. So, of course, Blue Zones is going to tap a bit on that psychosocial aspects of health. So, next week we are going to bring in Francesca Emma, who is also a licensed psychotherapist, to present the information on blue zones and stress management, especially in practices of gratitude, and much more that we'll go into today. But what's interesting is in Okinawa, Japan, women live longer than anywhere else on the earth, and elders remain active into their 90s or their hundreds. Greece is where there's 50% lower rates of heart disease and relatively no dementia, especially compared to here in the United States. In Costa Rica, Nicoya Peninsula, where elders are 3 times more likely to reach 90 than here in the Americas. So I think it's worthwhile for us to kind of take what we can from these areas and just see how it could elevate our day-to-day lives. So now we're moving a little bit on from that intro on what is Blue Zones to what this program includes, so more in the logistics. So, of course, we're going to focus a lot on an anti-inflammatory diet. So, for those who are targeting chronic health conditions, we're going to still maintain very close to a Mediterranean style of eating. Where we're going to differ a lot from the classic Blue Zone. So, if you do pick up the books or watch the Netflix special, which I'll highlight later and we'll talk about as well. The big distinction is they're very vegetarian oriented, which is neither good nor bad. However, we do want to promote proper consumption of meat as meat is an excellent source of protein in our diet, but distinction between higher quality meats versus lower quality meats, how lean the meat is, the nutritional makeup of it, and the vitamins and minerals that come from it. So that's where you're going to see a big distinction there. So of course, if you have your own personal, calorie needs, macronutrient needs, you want to adhere to that, similar to what was provided from the New Year's program where we gave everyone those individual needs. Still recall those, or if you're working one-on-one with a registered dietitian, still have your personal needs, but then apply the portions from, of course, the recipes and the concepts and the goals we set out to today. The program's going to be very action-based goal setting. It's very clear cut. It's a little bit more guideline oriented than previous challenges we've done. I'm going to go over a goal sheet with you guys, and there will be a point system. So the goal sheet, everyone's going to get their own individual Google sheet, which we'll talk about tonight. And that has tabs for each week and the different fun objectives and ways you can earn points. And there's, of course, a consistent food measure, of course, for how to get your food points each day, which we'll get more into later in the presentation. Like I said, there'll be weekly recipes. We're going to aim to, not aim, we are sending them every Friday now. So, of course, we wanted to kick off the challenge, but every Friday you will receive recipes. And of course, every Friday you will get a notification about the upcoming week's presentation as well. For anybody who is watching this recorded or has questions in general about how in the app it does say like you have a appointment booked, right? It's leave those in there even if you are recording them, watching the recording. It's a way we have to keep track for insurance reasons about the presentation. So please disregard, no one is being billed any cancellation fees. So just to give everyone a heads up there, there's any questions. Practical strategies for food logging and curating recipes. So we will talk about that along the way, and especially in the group chat. There is a group chat, so if you haven't jumped in there yet, we plan to kick that off tomorrow morning officially once everyone's in. There had been a link sent out, but in the email with the recording, I will place the GroupMe, and I will also place the Google tracking sheet as well. That tracking sheet is for the point system that we will go over that I just recently touched upon. If you would like to utilize the InBody, we will touch on proper protocol for that later in the presentation, but that is encouraged. So if you'd like to come in, we are located, of course, at 41 John Street in Babylon. If you call our office, 631-204-3375, we can, of course, have you come in for an InBody measure just to start off the program. We'll get more in depth about that though. And the program goals is to build sustainable habits, right? It's not about the short term, but the long term. Empower knowledge to achieve long-term wellness, to prevent onset of chronic disease. And of course, it's about starting off this second half of the year now on a great foot. So you kind of recap on the past, 6 months or so and say, okay, how did I want to set the year off? Did I achieve the goals I was setting out to? Okay, I am. Let me build upon that. Or if I'm not, it's never too late. So mark your calendars if you haven't already. You can utilize the Practice Better app or the email that first came through when you scheduled to place right into your Google Calendar if you utilize that. And I believe other apps as well. The only exception, so we're going to be meeting virtual Mondays at 6. We've got 5 presentations. The only exception is next week because of Memorial Day. So Francesca is going to present. We're hoping to hit everybody around the lunchtime area. We're trying to hit a large amount of people at one time, and we know it's hard to get everybody at the same time. So we wanted to try to sample that time period and see how well that works for everybody. So that will also be recorded. And of course, if you do attend live, there's going to be live Q&A, of course. It says 24 hours I put in the presentation. I'm going to get them out ASAP, hoping for tonight to send the recordings out. And Monday is considered day 1 of each week. So when you're thinking in reference to your points and tracking, what week are you in? Monday would be considered day 1. So once Memorial Day hits, we will officially be in week 2. So how to make the most of the program? Of course, check in on your practice better on Fridays to take a peek at the recipes. You want to try to plan for the week ahead, over the weekend if you have downtime, or at least for the next 1 to 2 days in front of you. You want to check in on Mondays for live presentations if you're available, or tune in for the recording. It's great to listen to even when you're on a walk. At times too, treat it like a podcast. It's better to listen than to not. So you can, of course, put it face down and listen like a podcast and scroll through the slides at another time if you're driving. Join on the GroupMe. So, of course, when you guys have questions, we love it when you guys reach out one-on-one, especially for personal questions, especially medical questions. But if you have general questions, put it in the chat, especially just because if you have that question, somebody else might have that question as well, and they might just be too nervous to ask. So it's always good to put that in the chat. And of course, utilize the chat. The more you guys are engaging and supporting each other, the more we're going to thrive off the energy of that. Keep up with the tracking in the Google Sheets. Don't let it get 2-3 days ahead. Try to do it like once a day at least. At the end of the day, you look at maybe if you look at a fitness watch, you look at your steps and your output for the day, and then you look at what you did in terms of the Google Sheet and you put that in. That could be a good evening winding down before you shut down technology. Meal preparation is key, of course. Fail to prepare, prepare to fail. We're not saying prep every little meal or snack, but just try to think ahead for what are the little things I can do for the next meal or the next day, or depending on where you fall on that spectrum. If you can plan for the week, that's wonderful. Progress tracking, the in-body measurements are optional, but they are encouraged because it does tell you a lot deeper than just weight. We'll get a little bit more into that, just to review that for many of us, and to celebrate progress through various markers, right? It's not just about weight, because really, what does weight tell us? Our weight's made up of 4 components. Our liquids, like our water, our bone, our muscle, and our fat. 3 of the 4, especially if we want to focus on longevity, we want to be heavy, we want strong bones, we need muscle, we need to be hydrated. So I think it's, set realistic intentions for yourself today, especially for the challenge of what you want to get out of this. And I think that's how you make the most out of the program. And when we've done different goal setting challenges, think specifically, right? Am I trying to increase my muscle mass? Am I trying to reduce my body fat? Am I trying to enhance my relationship with myself and caring for myself a little better? Am I trying to focus on more locally grown produce and seasonal foods? Am I trying to cook more from home? Am I trying to increase my energy or lower my cholesterol or breathe a little better, move a little smoother? Whatever that is for you, just be intentional about it. And sometimes I think a lot of us get lost in the sauce thinking about, oh, I want to do this one thing, and then the week changes, and then now I want to do this other thing. Whatever that is, be intentional about it, and stay to it, stay true to yourself, and keep promises to yourself. So just a little bit more each week as we go through the program, there's the Power 9 concept with Blue Zones. So there's Eat Wisely, which is what we're in now. And we're going to go through what these tenets are, this 80% rule, this plant slant rule, not rule, guideline, I should say. There's really no rules with nutrition. And wine at 5, and how we're going to shape that to best fit our practice and the evidence that we know around alcohol and stress management. As we move through, where we're going to be a little different from traditional Blue Zones, typically movement takes place in week 2, but just based on how the schedule had been arranged, we're going to focus on downshifting and connection in week 2. So that's belonging, loved ones first, and right tribe, and Francesca is going to go into what that means. And then week 3 will go into movement, and of course, moving naturally. So we're not saying throughout your gym memberships at all. We're just going to try to discuss other ways to keep active in our community and build it in naturally throughout our day. Right outlook is more for the last week, is downshifting, finding purpose. So everything comes full circle in the end. And the fifth presentation, we also want to celebrate everyone's wins. We want to learn about everyone's successes or questions too that they might have. But then we also want to round out the program very nicely with giving you guys a realistic and practical way to continue what you've been doing into later months after the guidelines of the challenge is over. So, like I said, Dan Bettner is the founder of this. You can, look him up and look into his background. He is a world-class cyclist and National Geographic explorer and researcher. So he is the person that narrates often the documentary. I highlight the documentary because I think it's nice to immerse yourself when you're doing something. It kind of gets you more engaged and it puts more stimuluses around you that it might, prime your choices a little bit from a psychological behavioral background. That if you have Netflix, there's a 4-part documentary show on Blue Zones, How to Live to 100, and you could consider, watching that one episode per week to really immerse yourself, but something just to highlight and help you to better understand the challenge too. Through studying these communities, of course, we've already touched on a lot of this. They discovered, some tips to help live longer without as much of this stress. So these are some books below. So this is based often on this third book here, the Blue Zones Challenge, but there's a slew of other recipe books that are Blue Zones embodied and of this program. We're going to leave one of them at the front desk, the Blue Zones American Kitchen. So it's the classic Americana twist on Blue Zones at elevation. So if you want to utilize that book, that's there for you to take a peek at. Say you're working out or you're just stopping in for a nutrition appointment or an InBody. So of course, we're going over the foundation, and then we're going to go into more of the diet and then the system. So introduction to Blue Zones, we've already gone through a lot of this. So it's bridging a lot off of the January program that set a strong foundation for many of us. But if you're new and tuning in, it's still a great starting platform to build up towards something of your calories, your specific protein, your carbs, your fat intake. So this is just another way to display that Power 9 principle you could take a look at in the slides. But how this program works is each week we focus on the Power 9 principle. You get primary and optional habits, or we call it activities, in your points. Recipes are provided. Like we said, it's about progress, not perfection. We do not anticipate everybody logging 100% of the points and earning 100% of the points every day, every week. That would be wild. So that just note that that is not the expectation, but it's just to try to do as much as you can a little outside of your comfort zone each day to be your happiest, healthiest version of yourself and your best self. So there's core goals and optional goals. The whole point system concept is to build awareness. It also builds motivation when there's a system in place. It helps to build self-accountability and momentum. So the goal is to do this, but to do this under the mindset of I'm keeping promises to myself and I'm doing this to be the best version of myself. So it's to live longer, feel better is the hope, to support these evidence-based guidelines, eat with purpose, move more, stress less, connect and thrive. And of course, the call to action is longevity. So I want to first jump in, and for those who've done different, workout classes and things, they might call it like a buy-in. You have to do like 5 burpees before you do this circuit. So this is kind of like a buy-in, meaning this isn't your week 1, week 2, etc. activities, but these are some starting off activities. So there's a true vitality test, a happiness test, and a purpose checkup. They're just 5-minute and 3-minute little questionnaires meant to prompt your thinking into ways you want to get the most out of the challenge. And then the thought is to do these again at the end of the challenge. So Francesca is going to go more into these from a psychological background and how they help us to keep motivated and consistent, not just during a challenge or quote unquote diet, but in the long run too. There's the 4 always and 4 avoid foods we'll touch on. They want you to post that and put that in sight and in mind. So of course, if you're doing this in the privacy of your own and you don't want to share too much with those in your living space, the goal is maybe put it on the background of your phone or put it in a place that only you see it, but it's a place that maybe you see it. Or if you do feel comfortable, post it on your fridge, the inside of a cabinet. It's just to put it in sight and in mind and keep it on and keep us mindful. Find a Blue Zones buddy or create a MOI. A MOI will go into more later. You get 30 points for that as a part of the Blue Zones challenge. They do make this point system. So you already got those 30 points because we already created a MOI. So it's more about having a community of like-minded individuals that are going to help you to be your best self. We'll get more. It comes actually from Okinawa, Japan. It has actually a little bit deeper of a meaning. We'll get to. If you track your progress or you go in your log at least once a day, there's a point just to go in there and log. Do 1 Blue Zones activity per day is the goal. So I'm just going to bounce out of this presentation and I'm going into the sheet. So can everyone still see my screen and see that it looks like an Excel sheet? I'm out of... Thank you, Bernadette. Awesome. So I'm just popping back in. Excellent. Okay, so it's being a little slow on my end. This is best if you do the Google Sheets app on your phone and have it as just like a simple app you go into on your phone. And it has the True Vitality test, the happiness test, the purpose checkup, and the 4 always and 4 avoid foods already hyperlinked for you. So you would press take the True Vitality test and get right to that link. Opens right up and it says begin 5-minute test. Easy peasy, and you just start to build from there. It's 6 questions for a baseline to compare to after the challenge. So it does give you something more to compare to. Once you do that though, you'll type in that you did it. It actually needs to refresh, but I think it's because my computer, there we go. It's because I'm presenting. I was being a little silly. So you'll just put in, yes, I did this. Yes, I did that. So you could keep track of the points. The goal is to try to do this by the 30th. I'm giving a nice window of time because if you really want to get the most out of the challenge, you're going to want to do it again at the end. So you're also going to want a little bit of time to do an intervention to test, right? So try to do this sooner than later. The way my screen is showing, it's being a little silly. There we go. So at the bottom, you see the other tab. It says food tracking. You have all the dates here of the challenge on the left column. And then here across on the right, this row has date. You want to try to aim to have a fruit or a vegetable at each meal. I'll show this on the slides so it's a little cleaner and easier to see. But I had started filling in the points that everything is worth in each cell for the day. And we put a formula in, so we'll just add the points up for you so you don't have to. You just have to know what it's worth, which it says it right there at the top. So that would be the food, that's the extent of the food logging. If you'd like to go deeper and track and say Chronometer or MyFitnessPal or in Practice Better on top of this, we encourage that. That's wonderful. That's above and beyond. Week 1, because we're thinking long-term sustainable. But week 1, of course, we're focusing on the eating wisely concept. So the core goals are going to be up here in blue zones, and the dates, of course, for the week. So week 1, it's going to say try to avoid eating in front of the screen. We'll talk about all of these. Try to eat at least 3 blue zones meals, which would be one of the options from the packet. Practice Hara Hashibu, which we'll go over what that means. Walk with a Blue Zones buddy. Or a friend at home, and post the Blue Zones food guidelines on your fridge. And then it says here, other activity. You would just give yourself a point for each other activity. And these other activities are written just down below as a bank. So it could be simple things like spending an hour outside, taking a nap, setting a bedroom temperature to 65 degrees for better sleeping, trying to fast 10 to 12 hours. And you want to try to maximize your points to get about 100 points per week. Each week has different themes. So this is week 2. So this is going to be the right tribe. So you're going to see it's more stress relief oriented, and then it builds up from there. Like write a thank you note, schedule a weekly gathering of friends, plan a vacation or a day off if possible, walk with your group, call or text or email a friend or family member you haven't connected with in a while. It does say volunteer to be an organ donor. That's very personal, so please, that's just a part of Blue Zones, no pressure. I kind of want to just remove that one if it makes anyone feel uncomfortable. But of course, you guys get the theme. Week 3 is going to be move naturally, and week 4 is right outlook. So again, I think this is easy. Either on the app in the Google Sheet on your phone, and you just pop in there once or multiple times a day, or you pop on your computer browser at the end of the day and just log what you did. Does anyone have any questions about that so far? Okay. So then next is, if it lets me resume, there we go. For always and for avoid. So some of you might have been like, oh, Amanda's using very pointed terminology, right? We're not going to say, we don't want to create black and white guidelines around food. It's still the concept of balance. But in general, we're trying to really abstain from sugar sweetened beverages like soda, right? There's no goodness that comes from soda, maybe if you're dehydrated, really, really dehydrated and you need some kind of liquid. But it really just takes from you. Salty snacks, see this as overtly processed salty snacks that, are greater than about 500 milligrams of sodium. It's like pretzels, it's Cheez-Its, it's Lay's, it's Fritos, it's cookies or processed rolls and breads, packaged sweets, of course, highly processed foods, processed meats. So think like unfortunately, Nathan's hot dogs, right, versus Applegate hot dogs, or, grass-fed versus non-grass-fed steak, right? So, of course, this program's very heart health, inflammation oriented. So we're going to try to keep red meat about 2 times per week for reduction in risk for colon cancer. However, there is more of a benefit to having grass-fed because there's more omega-3s, vitamin A and vitamin E in those meats versus feedlot meats that can have much more saturated fat and be more nutrient depleted and therefore more inflammatory. However, it's more so about leaning towards the what to add versus the what to take away, right? So if we're going to have a grain, we're going to aim for whole grains, right? If you happen to have, bread and you're not making it like a sweet potato toast, say, aim for like a sourdough whole grain bread, or use farro and quinoa loaded in fiber and B vitamins, oatmeal as well. Those can be great sources to protect your heart. And if you have elevated cholesterol, it can help to bring that down, but also they make you feel full, right? And especially if they're balanced properly, as say about a half a cup of oatmeal with, 30 grams of protein from some protein powder, about a half a cup of berries, and a tablespoon of chia seeds with some almond milk. That's a very well balanced, lower glycemic meal, even though it has oatmeal. So some people get nervous about that, but that's the difference between, say, a whole grain option versus a refined grain that's stripped of, a lot of the vitamins and much of the fiber, and then has to be refortified or enriched. And depending on your genetics, some of us may have a harder time absorbing some B vitamins from those fortified or enriched sources. So we want to try to aim for as much whole foods as possible. So we're pulling from these traditional diets, trying to pull a bit from these traditional culinary methods. I was trying to be considerate of everyone's time though too when making the recipe packet for everyone though. So nuts, a handful a day, or more so trying to stick to trying to have a little bit of nuts each day, right? A handful based on your needs, might be a little high, but trying to say, all right, I want to try to have nuts as maybe a little topping on my oatmeal, or chia seeds in my smoothie, or having a little bit of peanut butter on my apple, for example. Just trying to include 1 to 2 servings of nuts per day as a general guideline. Beans, 1 cup of beans, that's a very realistic and wonderful goal. 1 cup of beans is about 10 to 15 grams of fiber. We'll go more into how to do that. And if you do have an issue digesting beans, we can always talk about replacements for this goal for everybody. And then fruits and vegetables, it does say 5 to 10 servings per day. Try to get in as much as you can tolerate and what is realistic for you. So if someone's starting where maybe they take in 0 to 1 or 2 vegetables per day, then the goal would be, let's try to have a vegetable every day, or let's try to build it up to 1 to 2 per day. Look at where your baseline is and just try to be a little bit better this week than we were last week and build up from there. Or, if you did push yourself outside your comfort zone for one of the weeks and you want to maintain the growth that we did have in different goals, that's always wonderful to do. So even though it's black and white terms, they are, good guidelines to stick to. But note that, of course, Memorial Day is coming up, so we will help guide you guys with that as well and give you some recipes to assist. And when you are having a temptation, see if it's even something worthwhile. Are we having it just because it's in our path, or do we genuinely really like the taste of this option? If it is such a process option. So we went over the activity portions of the point sheet and what the Google Sheet looks like and the initial starting off quote unquote buy-in. This is how we do get our points in terms of the food section on that Google Sheet. So you can earn up to 12 points a day at CAP, because you can really add a lot of points here. So we will cap at anything over 12 when it adds up on the function on the Google Sheet. So if you have a fruit or a vegetable with each meal, so say a smoothie at breakfast and some salad at lunch, or a protein bowl at lunch with some bell peppers and spinach in it, and then some veggie minestrone and a side salad with your dinner, that night you would get 5 points. If you had a cup of beans, 3 points. Eating within a 10 to 12 hour window. If you have any stipulations with that or any medical clearance issues with that, please talk to us on the side. Most people should be able to fast 10 to 12 hour window to help your digestive tract rest, and also to keep better glycemic control. 30 minutes of physical activity per day is recommended for what feels good for your body. You want to try to focus on 1 to 2 hours or less of screen time, non-work. So we understand some people's jobs require screen time, right? So, of course, non-work, or trying to get your personal screen time as low as you can. It says weigh yourself every day. I'm not a big fan of that. I think when someone's weighing themselves every day, they're really just measuring fluid shifts. But check in with yourself, right? Check in with how you're feeling, look in the mirror, maybe check in with a pair of pants, or ask yourself, how, reflectively, how did I do yesterday? What was my peak? What did I feel I really, helped myself with today? And where could I, support myself a little better next time? Or of course, I think it is good to check in once a week though, with maybe an in-body or a weight, I should say, just to note your progress throughout the challenge. And then of course, tracking what you ate, just going into the Google Tracker and filling it out will give you a point. And you do have a deduction in points. This is something new we've never done for like a feedlot meat, so beef or pork or lamb. Any animal with 4 legs that walks on land that's not, grass-fed, we will get a -1 point deduction. Cow's milk products that we're going to omit for whey or casein protein powder, but more so the cow's milk products that are coming from more so like say a Chobani Zero versus say a Icelandic or a Siggy's or an Alexandria or a Chobani plain, for example, or a Icelandic or a Greek yogurt less than say about 10 grams of sugar, versus the dairy products that are, some Greek yogurts with upwards to 16 or 20 grams of sugar, like the Chobani Flips. If you guys have questions about specific products, throw them in the group chat. I love it when people have questions like that because then you never know who you helped by asking that question. Ultra processed foods, sweetened beverages, right? So by ultra processed foods, I'm not saying the pre-grilled chicken that we picked up. We're talking more about like Eggo's waffles, for example, or a Snickers bar I was craving when I wanted some chocolate, or say, a fast food takeout would be an ultra processed food. Sweetened beverages, greater than 6 grams of sugar. And the weekly goal is to try to hit 100 points, like I said earlier, and 400 by the end. It says longevity boost. We can't guarantee, of course, but I just see that as, having some kind of a target, some kind of a number to have the ambition to reach towards. So of course, there's the main focus this week of the top 4 activities in your blue zone section of the cheat sheet, which is don't eat in front of the screen, eat 3 blue zones meals per week, hara hashibu, and walk in a group or walk with a group or a buddy or a loved one. Your pet counts at least once. These are some optional goals for later in the week. So where floss daily comes from is periodontal disease and inflammation in your gums can actually impact the bacteria that go into your gut, impact your heart health. It's actually long-term inflammation that does impact blood sugars potentially long-term. So dental health is total body health. So it's important to floss daily. And it also starts to create a bedtime routine or a winding down routine, which does help your body to start to realize, oh, this is the time to relax and start to release melatonin versus, when our bedtimes are all over the place, it's hard for our body to work in circadian rhythm. So I wanted to touch on that just because I didn't have a slide on the flossing. Of course, lower bedtime temperatures, not too low, is linked to a better night's sleep. So sleep in the home, my thing with blue zones and the point system is some stuff can really overlap, which is nice to have versatility within the weeks. But some stuff like setting up the home, that's like week 4 with right outlook. So today's more so like diet, we said. So it's very Mediterranean. This is their version of what would be a Blue Zones pyramid. So it's mostly plant-based. And as you could see, the foods that we touched on, mostly beans, right? Whole grains, mostly water, snack on nuts, go easy on fish. So it is a bit pescatarian. Eliminate eggs, slash sugar, reduce dairy, retreat from meat with monthly, weekly, and daily stipulations. Nutritionally and based on evidence-based guidelines, we're not going to really gear you too much towards this, but we wanted to present it. Where we're going to gear you more towards, of course, we want to encourage plants, right? But where at the bottom, it says 95 to 100% plant-based, which is great. That's the same thing right here as the Mediterranean diet, which is mostly, fruits, vegetables, fresh herbs, spices. Yeah, you see whole grains, but that's not the whole picture here, right? Whereas you go up, they have the water here, which is great. Mediterranean diet's the same base of water. The fats in the Mediterranean diet pyramid, you'll see gets in on the bottom with a lot of the fruits and vegetables like lumped together of calories. So 1/3 cup is a better portion size, and that's even generous. But you also see here weekly, go easy on fish, eliminate eggs. We're not going to really abide by too much of this middle upper portion. So instead, we really would like you guys to turn more towards the Mediterranean diet pyramid, where you have your plants as your main section. You have seafood here, of course. And then as you work your way up, dairy is included, but it's more so like yogurt and cheese. And notice eggs are not eliminated. It's a wonderful protein source, very rich in choline as well, nourishing for the brain, helpful for cognition and as we get older. Of course, lean proteins you see here, ones that let's say swim or fly, are more encouraged. And then at the top is red meats and sweets. So we're not saying never, oh no, it's just minimal. So this is more so what we want to abide by. And this is very Blue Zones. As you see, the base is this moving naturally, eating as a family, friendship, playing sports. So we're going to build on all this. It does have the alcohol piece and the water we will touch on. So these are also Blue Zones guidelines, 95% plant-based. Again, if you want to do that, that's fine. That's your body. But we arrange the point system so that someone can be vegetarian, pescatarian, or an omnivore and do this healthfully, and especially reach their protein goals, as many of us may be strength training as well. This week, of course, disencourages eating in front of the screen. Why it can be harmful is if my time and attention is focused on the screen, I'm not as aware of how my body is feeling. I know that sounds kind of funny, but how hungry I am versus am I eating this just because I'm distracted? And is my plate empty or is it full? It can be very encouraging of overeating, especially because we get distracted and we tend to eat a little faster. And when we eat faster, our vagus nerve doesn't really have time to catch up and tell our brain, hey, we're full. So it's like the LIE at rush hour. So it's, of course, many of us might know this, but it's to really, really practice it, right? Like sit down at the table with someone you love, or reading something you love, or listening to something you love, like a book or music or whatnot, and truly being present with your meal. It allows for better digestion because if we're chewing more, less larger particles are moving through our digestive tract. So it's more mechanically digested, easier to extract nutrients from, and less distraction for digestive enzymes. So helps to keep things moving, less bloat. Uh, Weaker food memories. So if we're not really like remembering our food, and I know this sounds kind of weird, but like expressing gratitude towards our food. Remember when people used to pray before meals? It's a way to say, wow, I have this meal in front of me. Where did it come from? Um, because sometimes when we don't have it is when we really appreciate what we have. And it might be easier portion wise for some that way. I know for me it does when I express gratitude towards the meal of, oh, I took all this time to cook it. Let me eat slow, enjoy it, taste it, savor it, think about, the ingredients, where I got it from, how can I make it better? Or, what don't I like about it so I can make that part better? But just being present with our meals, it allows you to also be aware of, okay, I had this wonderful meal. I'm not super hungry to snack. I'm good. So it can help to do snacking later too. And then lower satisfaction when we're eating in front of the TV, less enjoyment from the food, more likely to crave afterwards. So breaking the habit is really trying to establish a tech-free eating zone. I know I'm going to sound like such a lame person to go out to eat with. When we were younger, it was like a trend that when you went out to eat with your friends, we would put our phones all in the middle of the table, and whoever touched it had to pay the tip. So that could always be fun when going out to eat with loved ones. And with the family dinner table, maybe creating a rule, put the phones away, right? Bring it up, see what people say around you. Practice single tasking. Give your full attention to one meal, right? We're never truly multitasking. We're just switching at high speeds between one task to another. And that concept of switching also drains your energy, but you're also trying to do two things at once. And you're not really, if I'm eating in front of the screen, I'm not probably giving my attention to whatever I'm watching fully, but I'm not giving my food the attention fully. And so I'm never fully doing one thing. Use a visual cue. So some people light a candle or they do a certain thing with the lighting or they play music or a podcast or an audiobook. Um, a placemat to signal, hey, it's mealtime. Like when people would set the table, it would kind of change the vibe of the environment, not to utilize that term. It also creates a cue to others. Oh, okay, it's dinner time. I'm going to start to put my phone away. Set a 10-minute timer. If you're one that might be tended to eat a little quickly, maybe setting a timer for the meal or pace yourself against someone who eats slower. So I know my fiance tends to eat slower than me sometimes, so I'll pace myself against him. Or you're putting your fork down in between bites. We'll go over the raisin meditation as well. Um, but reflect before reaching for other food. We'll tell people to place the food over on the counter versus on the table. So if we want to, have a second helping, if we're really hungry or we want some extra vegetables, that's fine, but it's really okay, I have to get up and want this versus just that easy reach across the table. And eat with intention, not attention. So I like this placemat. This could be a good visual reminder. Some patients actually have printed this and put this on their table as just a fun thing for themselves, just for like a week, just to help encourage slowing down. Many of us are super on the go and stand while we eat. That's also not the greatest for digestion. You should also be sitting, rest, and digest in a relaxed pace. Um, like we said, no TV, portion the plate. Sometimes they say count how much you chew. I think that takes away from the enjoyment of eating, but just be aware of, chewing your food, savor your bite, and we could always try swapping with the non-dominant hand, but that one's a little silly. Another big difference between our version of the Blue Zones Challenge is traditionally, in a lot of these communities, they have 1 to 2 glasses of wine per day, with food and friends, and that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I encourage that, like, if you do have alcohol, that is the way to have it. It's 1 to 2 glasses, it's an unprocessed wine, it's social, and it's with food, right? Nutritionally balanced food. However, the concept of wine at 5 from Blue Zones is really this way of what they're getting at when they talk about it is this relaxation, this being with loved ones, channeling your stress towards coping in other healthier ways, right? So newer guidance has come out since, of course, that documentary originally came out. So I don't want to play all gotcha with them either. But newer guidance does suggest less is best for most health outcomes because alcohol is a Schedule 1 carcinogen. Um, and with that being said, we could try to lean towards herbal tea, which is shown to have cognitive benefits and as part of the mind diet. We could do sparkling water with some citrus to get a little very small hint of vitamin C, or utilize, natural mocktails that incorporate, herbs like basil, for example, or utilize coconut water versus heavy syrups and soda. So though focus on connection, not the beverage, focus on being with the loved ones and unwinding and de-stressing versus a ritual around a beverage. So a lot of this might be redundant for many, maybe new for many. So I do want to touch on it. So carbohydrates are a part of this program. Of course, so carbs are all our fruits, our whole grains, our lightly processed grains, and so on and so forth as it goes across the spectrum to the more processed, refined grains and foods high in added sugars and ultra processed foods like soda and Pop-Tarts. We want to aim for carbs on the left-hand side of the spectrum, like beans, whole grains, and most importantly, fruits and vegetables. A good goal for most people is fruits 2 to 3 times per day, vegetables for what your digestive tract can handle, hopefully about 3+ servings per day. This is a little cut off of a diagram that you'll see at the end of the foods in the center are going to be more anti-inflammatory and fire burns hottest at blue. So as it goes up, more inflammatory foods, so refined starches and breads, and then of course your soda, pastries, cakes, etc. Acai bowls from Sobel. Fiber is what makes the difference. So foods higher in fiber, these are the carbs that we're recommending as a part of the Blue Zones Challenge is eating from the earth, eating local, eating seasonal. This is a big reason why I feel many of these Blue Zones communities have a big reduction in these chronic health conditions. It's because they're eating a very high fiber diet. So no matter how you cut it, a healthy diet typically has balance, variety, moderation, and what I always like to say is fiber. If you're not eating fruits and vegetables and beans and nuts and seeds, it's typically not going to be sustainable. It holds you over, makes you feel full longer, feeds your gut microbiome. Eating the rainbow, and of course, eating lots of fruits and vegetables. Why do we care? The color of that produce represents, of course, phytonutrients, right? And we have a whole presentation on phytonutrients if you attended the January challenge up on YouTube. Anybody can go and take a peek at that. We went really in depth there. So the color in that produce, if we ingest that, it gives us a benefit similar to like a vitamin or a mineral. And this includes tomatoes, rich in lycopene that also are red, for example. It includes our eggplants that are rich in different compounds like anthocyanins, like quercetin is a common one. Those are our purple produce. Our green, chlorophyll, great for our blood. Typically, high magnesium foods are green, and so on and so forth. So you want to try to eat the rainbow. And many of these cultures tend to do that and eat seasonally with the earth. So keep fruits and vegetables insight in mind, like have a fruit bowl out. That's going to be one of your activities if you'd like to check off on the Google Sheet. Snack attack, add them into snacks. If you're not the type to have it at a meal, okay, maybe we dip with some Greek yogurt and a little fresh herbs and spices or low sodium French onion packet into the Greek yogurt. We put it with some guacamole. Or especially some hummus, right? Two in one, beans and vegetables. So it could help you with your tracking sheet. Uh, Make it a meal, right? Always keep frozen vegetables on hand if you need, but it's great to keep fresh lettuce always in your crisper and some pre-cut bell peppers maybe just to toss onto salads or throw into soups or stir fries or protein bowls. So frozen, of course, when the food is out of season, that's the glory of the modern day, like berries when it's not around this time of year are typically out of season outside of May through July-ish. So you want to get them frozen. But now this time of year, they're starting to come into season right around when Mattatuck has that strawberry festival. Um, you want to get them as local as you can. So being aware of savoring the flavor of the season. This is a cheat sheet and a website you guys have access to be able to look up, what is in season here in New York, but also nationally too, what you can get. Beans, I touched a little bit on why beans are so important. The biggest emphasis with beans is they're about 10 to 15 grams of fiber per cup. When you compare that to something like broccoli's lucky to be close to 5 grams. It's more like 2.5 grams per serving. And when you look at, say, a slice of whole grain bread, that's going to be closer to 3 grams of fiber. A tablespoon of chia seeds is a very close second powerhouse with fiber, closer to 10 grams of fiber, but it's rare to see foods that high. So why do we care so much about the fiber? Like we said, reduces risk for chronic disease, keeps us fuller longer, reduces risk for obesity, feeds our gut microbiome, helps us to digest more. What else doesn't it do? However, uh, the fiber, most Americans get about 11 grams per day in on average. And for women, we want about 25 to 30 plus grams. The literature on those with 40 plus and above, if you tolerate, is even better for longevity. And for men, about 35 to 40 plus grams per day. So the beans, they make an easy dent, plus chia seeds. So, and then you throw in some berries and some oatmeal, and you're feeling good. So it's longevity linked. Beans are also high in vitamins and minerals, including zinc. So beans can also help to enhance the nutritional depth of your day. How to add beans. I'm going to leave this slide here for you to go into just for interest of time. Protein. Like I said, we are varying big from Blue Zones in that we want you to have protein. As someone who comes from what is it, third generation Sicilian fishermen. Fish are a big part of Sicilian, Southern Italy, Italian culture. So of course, to say my ancestors were eating a lot of fish is crazy to me. But also in terms of the literature, we need more protein as we get older. It becomes harder to digest it and break it down and actually absorb it. We need it for repair of our gut. We need protein for every single cell of our body to function. We need it to maintain our muscle mass, and our muscle is our fountain of youth. That is our metabolic motor that helps us to continue to burn sugar, for example. But if I lose my muscle mass, I lose my ability to sit, stand, walk, carry in the groceries, do my activities of daily living. And then that truly does impact mental, emotional health and longevity, of course, right? So it's about maintaining function lifelong, but it's about having a multitude of proteins. It's not just the meat. Of course, it's the beans, the nuts and seeds, the whole grains. Yeah, the occasional tofu, right? So it's just not to sound cliche, it's about balance. Um, about 1/4 your plate. So these are some animal proteins. In general, women aiming for 30 grams of protein per meal, men 40 grams of protein per meal. These are great quick summaries of how much protein's in certain servings that are animal-based. For those who are plant-based, this is another cheat sheet you can refer to. Hara Hashibu is a part of your goals for this week. It comes from Okinawan tradition. It actually means like 8 out of 10, right? So in Blue Zones challenge speak, we want to leave about 20% on the plate, right? It's about being present. It's about satiety. It's about feeling your fullness. So it reduces overeating, calorie excess, smaller plates, pause mid-meal. I sound kind of funny. It's like it started actually as a joke between my fiance and I. He like stopped one day when he was eating. I was like, "What are you doing?" And he just like stopped for like a while. And I'm like, "Are you eating? Are you cleaning up? What are you doing? I want to, start cleaning up the dishes." He's like, "I'm pausing to feel my fullness." And that's always a tool we can utilize to say, "Hey, I feel like I want to have a second serving or I want to keep going, but I'm not sure if I'm hungry or I'm just really craving. Do I need this or do I just want this? Let me pause, give my vagus nerve time to catch up to my brain and, see if I'm really truly full." Some people use the concept of a hunger fullness scale you'll see on the module of a 1 is I'm so hungry, I'm raiding all the cabinets, and a 10 is I am Thanksgiving stuffed. I cannot have another bite. So 80%, you could also think of it from the concept of stopping when you're at like about a 7 and 8 on that spectrum of hunger fullness. And the other way to see it is to start eating at about a 3, that I could eat, I'm starting to get hungry, that light twang, versus I'm so hungry. So you could see it in that regard, but in terms of the points, it's about leaving a little something on the plate versus clearing the plate. And it just brings intention back to your body telling you you're full versus the portion that was dictated for you on the plate or the plate size telling you that you're full. Plant slant. So this concept just means that you're leaning towards majority of plants on your plate. And even if you have, a big, a nice 5-6 ounce piece of chicken breast on your plate, you could still have half your plate vegetables, 1/4 beans, and then cooking with olive oil. That about 75% or more of that plate is truly shifted towards the plants. So you want to try to have more plants on your plate, and your shopping cart in the grocery store should mimic your plate. So 50% plants, 1/4 protein, 1/4 your starches, and then just a little fat. So if you want to come in and utilize the InBody, we strongly encourage it. These are just some baseline measures we touched on in the beginning of the presentation. So you can see these here, and they are linked in your Google Sheet I will send to you. For body composition goals, if you are utilizing that InBody or a home scale, to utilize or build muscle, body fat, a realistic, we want to try to focus on body fat loss. Realistic amount of weight to lose per week is about 0.5 to 2 pounds per week. And of course, we want to focus on body fat loss and muscle maintenance or building. If you're trying to focus on reduction in blood pressure or certain chronic health related markers like blood sugars, fasting blood sugars, or cholesterol, typically a 5 to 10% weight reduction does enhance those labs, but it depends on the origin of what is impacting those labs though. So for not everybody, weight loss is why or what's needed to manage their cholesterol, for example. But that's what literature does point to, however, if someone is in a larger body. So the InBody measurement times and instructions that are available, if you like to use it, ideal times is Monday, Wednesday, Friday. between 5 a.m. when the building first opens to 1 p.m. However, in theory can come anytime. We just ask that you call ahead just to let us know at the main functional nutrition RX office. And Sundays, 7 a.m. the building opens till about 1 o'clock. Bernadette is going to be there. So if you know Bernadette and you feel comfortable with Bernadette, that's when she is there to utilize the scan. And she just prints it off and gives it to you, of course. So you will get that. And InBody does have an app, so you could keep progress in their app if you'd like to. And to ensure most accurate and consistent results, try to fast at least 2 hours. Try to come in hydrated. So if you're coming in the morning, try to drink at least a glass of water, not a 32 ounce. And of course, try not to exercise within 2 hours of coming in. If ideal conditions are not available, like say you're going to work out before you do the scale for some reason, or you have to eat before it, that's okay. Just do the same thing next time so you can compare it per se. So it's not saying that the exact muscle it says you have is exact, but you could see, okay, I went up 2 pounds to compare it. So if you can't keep ideal protocol, at least try to do the same thing you did the first time, the second time. So these are just some parameters to aim for based on age and sex for muscle and for body fat, based why muscle mass improves our health outcomes. So we touched a little bit upon this. Muscle mass helps to act as a metabolic motor to burn sugars for us, help to reduce body fat because the more muscle we have, the faster our metabolism is. It keeps our joints strong, keeps us moving, and gives us stamina. It also helps to keep our hormones in balance, especially males and testosterone, but also hormones in terms of our blood sugars and our insulin too. So it helps to reduce risk for cardiovascular disease, especially when you see a lot of cardiac atrophy of the muscle. You have heart failure. Stepping up to the plate is a little cheat sheet. So this is what we started to go through with regard to the protein and the carbohydrate sections. Just for interest of time for today's presentation, there was a lot of information to go through. We have the fat section that we're going to go through next week. But as you can see here, there's the more inflammatory fats and the more anti-inflammatory fats. So your mono and your polyunsaturated fats versus your processed saturated fats and trans fats. So creating a MOI. So this concept actually came from Okinawa, Japan, and it was a group of women coming together in their older age to just support each other financially and with food and meals just to survive. So acting as a family is where this comes from, but it can also be one's family. A MOI is just a long-term social group that provides support, companionship, and a sense of belonging. So some people get this in different, union work. Some people get this in sports. Some people get this at their local gym, in classes, or just in passing, or they get this from volunteer work. However, it's linked with, of course, reduced likelihood of loneliness, better mental health outcomes. So emotional support, it does give accountability. The more people you share your goals with, that of course support you and love you, the more likely you are to achieve them, right? Because it creates that sense of accountability. They encourage you, and has been having strong social ties is linked to lower disease risk and longer life. So part of this goes into the research they've done on Seventh-day Adventists that tend to also fall into the centenarian community. And it's thought that because they're acting in a group, right? And also the volunteer work that they do too. Creating your MOI, right? Technically, this is our MOI, but it would be good, I think, for the program that if you start to have, someone in your household, someone that you work with, a group of friends, that you start to do some of these things on the side with. It could be people in the challenge, or hey, if everyone wants to organize something, that'd be wonderful. But to create a time and a place, maybe on your lunch break, with someone that you're friendly with at work that you walk once a week, and create like that regular meeting time, or after work, you and your significant other, walk the dog together, or it's you and your dog. Your dog can be part of your MOI. That's okay. But having a buddy, ideally it's someone though that can hold you accountable and that can hopefully speak. But plan a potluck, or a walking moy, or it could even just be something else more personal to you. If you like pickleball, it could be a weekly pickleball game pickup. It could be a sport that you played a long time ago that you haven't played in a while. But you want to try to form a core group, maybe 4 to 8 people, just that uplift each other, right? And you could always have different clusters of those 4 to 8 people and different things that you do, maybe. But mindset matters, right? Look for positive people, right? We are who we surround ourselves with. Introduce yourself, share your name, share certain things about yourself. It can be uncomfortable, but depending on the context of where you are, find common ground. Places to meet friends can be parks, farmers markets, fitness classes, community events, volunteering. I think it's just keeping our head up. You can meet people everywhere. I think it's just, keeping an open mind and a perspective. Many of my friends I've met in the most random ways. So let's see. One way I've met a lot of friends is an ice bath group that people do, where it's like an ice bath and a sauna and a workout, and everyone talks and meets each other, but it's a way for people to get together and hang out and have a good time. And it's alcohol free, which is really nice. So it's all people who are really into fitness and wellness and doing things that help their body. It could be even, like a book club, right? Or playing bridge, right? Going back to old school days. The power of walking together, though, is the biggest thing because it's going to hit two goals. It's going to hit that social de-stressing goal, but it's also going to help with movement. So walking is a core Blue Zones habit. It's natural, it's outdoors. We're trying to especially enhance things that were done in old school days prior to having gyms. But of course, keeping active in the best ways that you can is always going to be supported. Walking can strengthen social bonds. It also is part meditative because it's something you do that you're not really thinking about, like, how do I walk, right? It's something that's easy to become a ritual as well and something to look forward to. And many of us can and have the blessing to walk. So that's wonderful. So I'm showing the image of um, how it takes the group to move the figures of Easter Island out to demonstrate like how it was thought that they were moved to that place by the cliff. So moving naturally, daily low intensity activity. So we're not thinking about, super high impact activity that's, grinding our knees down. We're talking walking, gardening, household tasks boosted into our day, or activities that are no gym membership required to promote in our day. Of course, going to the gym is immensely supported, and going to classes and strength training, but also outside of that is what we're talking about too. So doing this is going to help promote cardiovascular endurance, your heart rate variability, your metabolic balance between burning carbs and fat, promote your joint health. People in the Blue Zones often walk hillier terrains. Think like the steppes in Greece, for example, or the steppe terrain in Japan, where they grow tea. So or in Icaria in Italy, to the coastal southern areas of Italy. So it's, having strong lower bodies and core that keep you moving lifelong. Naturally builds leg strength, balance, and cardiovascular endurance. Manual labor, though, counts, cutting wood, doing, weeding the lawn, weeding the flower beds, moving the mulch, groceries. It's all a part of moving naturally. Adding incline walks or stair climbs to your week can also improve your longevity. So this kind of... Now, sleep is going to be another goal. So we used to love to emphasize the 10-3-2-1 method, so I'm bringing that back. So part of Blue Zones is about getting better sleep and getting better rest. So 10 hours before bed, you want to cut down caffeine. 3 hours before bed, try to cut down food and especially alcohol. 2 hours before bed, shutting down work and especially screen time 1 hour before bed to really help reduce that blue light exposure. But if you really cannot escape it, try to do the blue light glasses to block some of that, and zero the number of times to hit snooze. So this is just a fun 10-3-2-1 method to just remember little ways to emphasize better night's sleep. So Fran's actually going to go more in depth in this, but I wanted to go into finding purpose a little bit just because you guys have that as the one of the buy-ins introductory goals. So finding purpose or ikai or plan de vita is more the Italian term you guys may have seen, is having that sense of purpose that's a key factor in longevity and overall well-being. So I know for me, my sense of purpose is I love nutrition. I've loved nutrition since I was in the seventh grade and playing sports. It's just been a part of my life. And I love that I can go to work and help people every day, right? So it gives me a great get up and go. So a lot of us have that, right? Especially if someone's a nurse, a cop, a firefighter, but some of us may struggle to find that, right? So part of that with Blue Zones is understanding like our job is not who we are and finding what is that reason, what is that deeper goal, what am I looking for in my health and my health related journey, and how can I be my best self in my community. So it's about by identifying living with purpose, we create a stronger mind-body connection to reduce stress, enhance our quality of life, and while supporting our 100% 100-year-old self. So if you've noticed a lot of the older people that don't let stress penetrate them so much, and they say, well, I know what matters to me. What matters to me for many older individuals that I've learned from is like, oh, at the end of the day, I've got my family, I've got a roof over my head, and I've got my heart beating in my chest, and I'm breathing oxygen. So I'm good. I'm okay. Everything else, water off a duck's back, or, observe, don't absorb. So just want to give a little intro to that concept, having a reason for being, a passion, a mission, um, something that keeps us going. So we went a lot into how the program works, and this is just a reiteration of the point system. I'm going to send everybody the Google Sheet, and I'm just going to make it individualized. I was going to ask everyone originally to make a copy and just name it themselves. I'm just going to send everyone their own personal one. So again, this is just a reiteration of the goals and what we're focusing on. So these again are your optional activities. And if you're interested in, of course, the Blue Zones documentary, watching, maybe one episode per week for down here on the bottom right corner is something you can utilize. However, these are lists of some books and some TED Talks on the topic just to dive in a little more, just immerse yourself in it and create and foster better motivation. So I do love this quote by Winston Churchill. It says, shape your surroundings and they will shape you. So that's part of the essence of doing this, right? Just by partaking in this, even if you start to pick up 2 or 3 things that are outside of your comfort zone each week, you never know where that takes you. I put a link also here below as a gentleman who I thought just had such a great mindset, and he was just such a pick-me-up. He's this gentleman that runs marathons and juggles. So they call him a joggler. And he is the oldest known marathon juggler. I think he's in his 90s, I want to say. And you just have to hear this man talk. He just has the greatest outlook. He's just so positive. So of course, surround yourself with, people that bring that kind of a light that motivate you. So I put this little meme. This is something some people have been pulling up online, is the concept between this functional world that we do live in here at Functional Nutrition RX, and of course this longevity world that we also live in here. So the whole concept of Blue Zones is to step away from this diet culture mindset. So this concept of the older Italian man on the right, living to 100, right, lives by the sea, but we do encourage blood work. Something like where it says hasn't done blood work in 30 years. Walks 10 minutes after meals, enjoys red wine, doesn't know what a calorie is, eats whole foods compared to someone very strict. Very, if you've seen the Brian Johnston blueprint information, he eats the same food every day, 100 supplements a day, does the same exercises, and is living very robotically. And of course, there's a choice in that, and whatever someone's choice is, that's their choice. But it's just highlighting that you can have a healthy lifestyle and live with joy. And we're trying to highlight those ways that mind, body, and soul, right, through our food, our mental health, and our physical well-being, and our home environment, we can live our best lives and do it in a way that we don't hopefully feel like a robot. So of course, key takeaways is that longevity is influenced by more than more is influenced more by lifestyle than by genetics. I really like the image because it had both things, but I just don't like how it's teetering to one side. Your environment is the key. The genes load the gun, however, the environment can pull the trigger, is the expression. Blue zones promote natural movement, purpose and stress reduction, plant-based whole food or real food consumption, strong social connection, and building small daily habits to equal long-term health versus short-term fad dieting. So I know I went long today. Next week is going to be shorter, guys. I promise. I want to say thank you most importantly for your time and your energy. And also, these are our contact information if you guys have any questions whatsoever. And most importantly, I do want to say thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a quick question, Amanda. Thank you for doing this. Um, I have an appointment the same day as the next video call. Is that an insurance issue? Like, should I reschedule my appointment?
I will double check with Christina. I think it's fine. She just has to file it carefully, maybe.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
double check that. Great question.
Thanks.
Anytime. Any any questions about the layout or the logistics of the program, guys, or the point structure?
Can I ask a question?
Oh, hey, Maria. Yes, please.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Yeah, you talked about, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted.
Oh, you're so fine.
No, you're good, thank you. My son and I are both talking on Zooms. You talked about, oh my God, why is my brain not working? Fasting for like 10 to 12 hours.
Yes.
So I typically stop eating at 8, but I'm an early riser. So I do have coffee. I don't usually eat again until maybe 9:30, 9, depending on when I'm hungry in the morning. But I have my coffee at by 6 o'clock. I've had my first cup of coffee. It's with nut milk. Does that break your fast?
Yes, if there's a gram of carb or a gram of protein, that's just the easy way to tell. It's technically it's
Okay.
not hold fast, but that's just like an easy guideline. Great question.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
All right. Thank you for everything.
No, thank you.
Bye.
And with the fasting concept, guys, I think Maria brings up a really good question that some of you might question, like, do I cut off earlier in the morning or do I cut off earlier at night if I have an option? Ideal would be to cut off earlier at night versus the morning if you can, meaning like if you can eat within 1 to 2 hours upon waking, that's going to be ideal. But then cutting off like those 3 hours before bed can help with that window. So I want to be more specific about like the evening versus the morning, if that makes sense. Right. I didn't lose anybody? All right, solid. Very
Yep.
good.
I have a question also about is it Harihashi?
Harahashibu, yeah.
Harihashi. Does it count if you just put less food on your plate, or do you have to leave food on your plate?
Oh, that
I'm
gets
trying to
me.
think of like not wasting food and having more food to bring for like lunch the next day or leftovers.
I agree because Brian and I argue about that because I'll like want to save it. I'm gonna be like, well, I'm gonna eat it the same thing from but myself. It's not going back into anybody else's. Like, do I put it in the Tupperware for the next day for only me? But I agree with you. As long as we're intentional about it, to say I'm just putting a little less on my plate and I'm gonna mindfully pause if I need more, just to kind of check in on my hunger and fullness cues. I think the whole concept is just being very intentional about it. And then I would give the point.
Thank you.
Anytime. Any questions on the point structure? Because even myself, the first time I went over it, when I had to like make the Excel sheet, I had to kind of set my mind. I had to go through it a couple times. you might see another really important thing to, oh, I did touch on this, is week 2 in blue zones, right? If you look at your cheat sheets, like next week, when you see module 2 come out and you see your cheat sheets, it's going to say week 3 because we switched week 3 and week 2. So you guys might notice that, but we're move naturally to week 3 and write tribe to week 2. So just that might cause some confusion. Your Google Sheet, though, does reflect the swap properly. So week 2 is week 2 and week 3 is week 3. But okay, I'm going to distribute this and send out an email to everybody shortly and give everybody their Google tracking sheet. So you'll see a personal email from me. And next week, because of Memorial Day, it's going to be the only week that we're not meeting a Monday at 6. We're going to be meeting the 28th at 12. And again, that will be recorded. Recipes come out this week on Friday. And if you have personal, medical questions, just reach out to us on the side. Contact us through call, text, or email at the office, or my email, because I'm going to be sending it all out to you guys. And if you want to utilize the InBody, also just give us a ring at Functional Nutrition RX, the 631-204-3375 number, and we can arrange the InBody as well for everybody. All right. Be well and have a good night. Thanks, guys.